and welcome to another edition of Malts with Mates. Today we have a very special guest, All-Star Jack Higgins from Row & Co, mixologist from the Best of Ireland show, and reserve guarder as well. Jack, mate, how you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. How are you getting on?
Yeah, pretty good. Drinking a lot of whiskey, which is good. Brings us
Which of
on
the
to the
most?
most important question. What are you drinking today?
Well, right now I have just started with a little bit of the Powers Old Fashioned, which for the price is absolutely fantastic. Something just to grab and just sip on every now and then.
Mm.
What have you got there?
I've been on a Penderyn streak recently, and I'm drinking the Penderyn, the Dylan Thomas, which I just realised you can't see that. The Dylan Thomas Sherry Wood, all about the poet. Uh, it's a fantastic series. They just release bottles that are about people and events and times that are significant to Welsh history, and this is quite good. I'm enjoying this one. It's good for a little nip. Yeah, so happy
Nice little
about
guy for
that.
it. They haven't released any for any of the Welsh rugby team, no?
They did actually. They released. No, I'm serious. So I think it might have been last year's release, the 2019. I think they released the Penderyn That Try, which I believe was a peated port cask. I've not tried that one yet. That one's next on the list and the next on the agenda to pick up. So I'll probably get that tomorrow. The Welsh rugby team is really good. Come on, what are you talking about?
They are. That's why I was saying it. The Welsh team are definitely up there. Just not as good as the Irish.
All right, I thought you were having. I mean, that brings us on to a really good question that is not on my list at all. Are there any whiskies in Ireland regarding the Irish rugby team, or do you know if anyone's releasing any?
Not that I can think of. I suppose, you always associate the rugby team with more the likes of Guinness.
Hmm.
So I suppose none of the whiskies have really kind of broken that market or broken into even the advertising or anything for it. But I mean, with the growth that we're having in the industry, I'm sure, you know, Irish whiskey and Irish rugby team are two kind of, points of pride in the country. So it wouldn't surprise me.
I would love to see that. If you could, before we get into the real questions, if you could pick any one distillery to bottle an Irish rugby whiskey, who would you pick?
Irish rugby whiskey. I suppose without being biased, I'd say, it'd be nice to see something from Roe, especially with the tie back to Guinness and Diageo. And but I mean, like that's it. Guinness and rugby go hand in hand in Ireland. So why not have a rugby bottling from Roe?
No, that is true. And to anyone watching, we are aware that one of the Irish players was a shareholder in Glendalough for some time, but I'm not sure what's happened there, purely because there's too much news to keep track of. But your mention of Rowan Crow brings us very neatly onto the first question. For those who are unfamiliar with Rowan Co, can you tell us a bit about yourself, the distillery,
Hmm.
and how you guys kind of came together?
Uh, well, myself, this is kind of my first proper job into the industry, which has been an absolutely incredible start into the industry to work for a company like Rowanco. Only last year I graduated from college, and my dissertation was on barrel aging and just all about barrels and Irish whiskey and where I thought, from talking to industry people, where barrel aging would be going. Traditionally having the likes of, bourbon barrel for everything, and then a little bit of sherry, a little bit of port going down through history. But then I just saw with the explosion of Irish whiskey, there's a lot of distilleries that are really pushing the boat out. And you have Teeling with your wine casks, you have Lambay with the cognac casks, you have, you know, there's a lot out there. And I just found it fascinating, so I decided to write my dissertation on it. But then following that, um, yeah, I just kind of graduated, took it easy for a little while, and then just so happened to stumble across the job posting for the brand ambassador job for Row, and went for it and got it, and now I have finally made my step into the industry. But Ronco itself is quite a new distillery, relatively new distillery. So historically, George Rowe was in that area in the Liberties, would have been the biggest distillery at the time, as far as I know. They bought into one of the distilleries beside them, which was also huge, and they just kind of amassed this entire area across one side of the Liffey on Dublin 8, and that's where the name comes from. But Rowan Co now is kind of taking heed of the past and taking the name, but then obviously putting a new spin onto it and putting it, out as a brand new product. And it's in the old power station opposite Guinness, so directly across the road from the Open Gate Brewery. And it's a beautiful location, a beautiful building. And when you're inside it, you can actually look up through the glass panels in the roof and see all the old machinery. It's all still there. Very little was actually kind of touched and moved. So the stills were just kind of slotted into their spot, and all the equipment around it. And the bar actually looks out onto the new section of Guinness. So funny enough, you have Guinness across the road, and then you have us in the middle, and then more Guinness out the back. But it's a fantastic location, and the whiskey itself, obviously, is quite an interesting one. It was produced with a lot of bartenders, kind of giving their advice and giving what they thought of the product, which is why it settled on 45% ABV for the standard bottling, to really be used as either a cocktail whiskey or to just drop in with a little bit of ice like that, or to drink on its own, and it kind of stands up no matter what way you put it, which I think is it's a fantastic versatile whiskey. And only recently released a cask strength version of that, so it's pretty much the exact same mash bill, the exact same whiskey, but bottled at 59.1, which it sounds like a high ABV, but it's still very easy to drink, and you drop it into a Rowan tonic, and it's just a fantastic mixed drink.
Well, I would love that. Peanut Jessica has just commented, by the way, somehow you've confused how you got into Roe with what's the history of Roe. So I do really want to know. You said that you did your dissertation on barrel aging. So obviously you've got a love for whiskey and a love of the industry.
Yeah.
And how long were you in the community before you came in the industry, so to speak?
I'd say it was kind of a couple of years on the outskirts, just kind of going about things myself and not really knowing anybody. So, a bit of background, like my degree is in culinary entrepreneurship. So it was a business degree, but it was in a culinary college. Because I'm a big foodie, I love food. And that was my idea going into it, following an engineering degree and deciding I didn't want to be an engineer. I thought, I love food, food in Ireland is exploding. I'll go into that. And I can't even remember what happened. I think it was just, we happened to have a bar management class, and we were tasting a few different spirits just to kind of get to know everything. And I tasted whiskey, and I think it was, I feel like it was Tullamore Dew or something. I think it was just a standard Tully. And I was like, all right, that's actually really interesting. I really like that. And then it sounds ridiculous, but it just seemed to be fate. I was at a Christmas play that my sister did in her school, and entered the raffle and won a bottle of Jameson Black Barrel, which I still have over there on the shelf behind me. And that was my first, bottle of whiskey that I had, purely by chance, and I just became obsessed with it. And I went from there. I just went to visit Bow Street, just went on my own, and then I went to Teeling with a friend of mine. Again, not really knowing anybody. I tried the Brabazon and just was blown away by this whole other level of whiskey. And the Brabs sit out like 49%, and it was just such an intense flavor with so much going on. And I was kind of like, yeah, no, that's what I want to do. I like this a lot. And just went from there to just buying whiskeys and collecting whiskeys. And I'd always had a huge love of Irish, and obviously Irish whiskey is what got me into it. But then my dad had just all these bottles of scotch that he used to collect, and he kind of just threw them all in a bag and left them off in the corner. And one day when he realized I was really, really into it, he's just like, oh, come on, we'll go take a look. And some of the stuff he was pulling out, like, as I was saying, that bottle of Yamazaki 18, he just pulled out of the bag. He's like, it was Japanese whiskey. And, researching into some of the stuff that he was pulling out, I was like, Jesus, like, these are ridiculous whiskeys. And they were just sitting in a bag. But that was it. So through him, I've actually brought him back into the industry now. So he had taken a few years of just kind of forgetting all about whiskey. And now he's, through me, he's just, trying everything he can at the moment as well. So, it was really only till I kind of finished my dissertation and got this job that I really got into the industry and got to know people, which has been a huge help, and which has also been fantastic just to be able to chat to everybody. There's only so much that I know and only so much that I could have learned myself, but just being able to sit in a room and just listen to people and have people tell me, what they know about whiskey, and it's just building up my knowledge from there. And, it's always a learning experience. So that's what I enjoy about it. Everybody in the industry is so welcoming and so nice, and everybody wants to just talk. And, it seems to be really a place where everybody loves whiskey, so they'll just talk about it.
I mean, I've been told more than once by my partner when she says, "All you guys do is talk about whiskey." And it's so interesting. It's amazing. We do have by the way, also watching is Daffy O'Connell, the amazing Daffy O'Connell of WD O'Connell Whiskey Merchants. Daffy, we love you and we love your stuff. Fantastic to see you. And he might get a sneaky drop in at some stage. And I'm bringing this up because you're obviously pouring the Powers Old Fashioned.
Yep.
But as I said, you're also the mixologist for the Best of Ireland show. I'm unfamiliar with the show. Could you tell us a little bit about it, and also about how you got into mixology?
Pretty much by doing this show. I worked in a couple of bars and did a few cocktails, did a little bit. I definitely wouldn't call myself a mixologist, but just at the start of lockdown, a friend of mine, he runs this Instagram page called the Best of Ireland, which has a huge following, and they post a lot of photos from just beautiful spots all over Ireland. And he wanted to take it in a different direction and start doing a live show every Sunday to get Irish celebrities on to just have a chat about what they love about Ireland and about themselves. And again, it's just one of those things that just kind of fell into place, and I ended up doing a cocktail at the start of all the shows, and I tried to tailor that cocktail towards the person. So we've had the likes of Tommy Bowe, the Irish rugby player, Senna Nwapu, another rugby player. That's my Alexa going off there. She's now talking about rugby players. That's terrifying.
Oh, it's absolutely horrible.
But we had like Ryan Andrews as well. He was on the Dancing with the Stars, so it was incredible people that were able to come onto the show and have a chat, and it was just great fun, just making a few cocktails. And it kind of gave me a chance to, it's like the story of being, if you're teaching your kid piano, you're like one lesson ahead. I'd be like reading up and like planning my cocktail and then learning how to do what I need to do for that cocktail just beforehand. So, but I had a lot of help from a lot of people in the industry as well. So I got to kind of just pester them and text and be like, no, what's this? Like, how do I make this? Like, what do I do with this? But yeah, I mean, they all turned out good, and none of them poisoned me, so happy with that.
Not visibly, We don't know what this point is like.
We'll wait and see. We'll give it a little while.
But actually, because I'm someone I quite like cocktails as well. I'm by no means a mixologist. I like putting stuff in a glass and drinking it. The more whiskey, generally, the better. But so as someone who loves both whiskey and cocktails, how do you feel about people saying you shouldn't put whiskey in a cocktail? What's your thoughts when you're presented with that?
I agree, and especially working for a company like Roe, which is heavily founded on the idea of cocktail whiskey, and I am all for that, because I think that whiskey in a cocktail can absolutely set it off. You can have some excellent vodka cocktails, but at the end of the day, vodka is quite a tasteless spirit the vast majority of the time. I know there's exceptions, and you get flavored vodkas and stuff, but I don't know, like something like an espresso martini, like, typically it's a vodka drink, but I love making it with whiskey, especially with Roe or even a cask strength Roe. If I really want to just, end the night, it's incredible. It gives a whole other depth of flavor, because, you're having these flavors like, the coffee bean, and you're adding to it, a real caramel vanilla flavor, and all it can do is just build it into something even better. So I think that absolutely, throw whiskey into a cocktail and see what happens. I think, if people want to drink, if somebody buys a bottle of whiskey and they want to drink whatever way they can, fire away and go for it. Like one of the cocktails I did, I actually put like a float of Lagavulin over the top, which, you'd think would be crazy strong flavors, obviously, but it's still was able to hold its own, give the smokiness, but also the sour that was underneath it came through with the citrus flavors, and it just actually worked quite well. That one I was very surprised about, but I was happy with how it turned out.
No, I mean, I know a couple of guys who make the penicillin cocktails, and they'll always have a
Yeah.
little spirit bottle of like a nice aged Lafroy, and just a little bit of that. Just it takes it right, and especially trying to rejig the old fashioned with some salt, some Lafroy, some burnt rosemary, really just add something to it. That's still a
Huh.
work in progress, by the way. But are there any kind of signature cocktails that you yourself have made that you could share with us? You don't have to make them, mind you. Just tell us about
Um, gosh, I can't even remember. It's kind of like when you do an exam and then you just forget about it the next day. I posted a lot of them on my Instagram. Um, Actually, there was one that I enjoyed. It wasn't a whiskey one, but I got sent just like a pack of stuff from Drumshambo with the gunpowder gin, and the guideline was just to make a cocktail.
it.
So I kind of sat there for ages, being like, I have no idea what to do, no idea, and I ended up making what I think I called the Drumshambo drumstick. Um, so I made it something like I don't even know what you call it. I don't know what it was close to, but it was just raspberries. I made my own vanilla sugar syrup with fresh vanilla pods, and the gin, and that was it. And just kind of shook it all together. And what I did was kind of crushed up some refreshers and rimmed the glass with that, and then had an actual drumstick lollipop as a decoration. And the flavors that came through were phenomenal. Just that raspberry and vanilla, it really did taste like a grown up adult version of that kind of children's sweet. It was That was one that I was definitely most happy with, because I just had this idea and actually saw it come together.
No, I love that, and using that sweetness in a cocktail is fantastic. Especially using the sweetness with gin, I think is very underrated because you said earlier a lot of cocktails are made with vodka, which you are completely right. The guy, there's standouts like Origin Spirits and Stephen Randall's and all that, but for the most
Yeah,
part, it's tasteless, it's colorless, and it's just there as an alcoholic base. You do
yeah.
want to see more flavor come through, so using that gin to punch it up is fantastic. Uh, that's what I was going to ask. Um, yeah, so you just said that Rowan Co. have released the new expression at 59.1%, was it?
hmm
Is it 59?
Yeah, 59.1.
59.1, which I'm a sucker for a cask strength whiskey. I love it to pieces. I
Absolutely.
think all whiskey is cask strength because I think that's the most fun. If you don't like the cask strength, you can add water, but you can never add alcohol without potentially poisoning yourself. And Dennis, hey, if you've got your own little set of stills, you could easily do something. Do not do that. To anyone who's watching, don't home distill unless you're qualified. It's a bad idea. Uh, the show is currently not endorsed or sponsored by anyone, so please don't do that. Don't come to me when you do it. We got Dennis Hendricks from the Netherlands is watching, by the way. And Dennis is a huge lover of Irish whiskey. He takes Irish whiskey all through the Netherlands. You've probably seen him, and I'm sure he loves Bronco. He's said he can't wait for the new expressions by Laura and the Whiskey Makers team. Rowan Co. is underestimated, and it really is. You just released the 59.1. Are there any
hmm
new expressions maybe you could hint at? Could you give us a
I can
one-word
hint
hint at
hint at the fact that there is definitely more on the way. I think it's definitely something that's in the works, and even in the distillery itself, there is actually a single malt and a single grain that you can bottle yourself, which they're just phenomenal. But yeah, I mean the stuff that Laura's working on, and I'm very excited to see what'll be coming out in the next little while, especially with something like the where is it? I don't know if a lot of people might have missed it, but the Curator series was one of the most fantastic whiskies I've come across in the last little while. So it is a port cask. It's a high malt. Yeah, it's still blended, but it's a high malt blend, and it's just a fantastic whiskey. But a lot of people have missed out on it, and it was a limited run, and it was, you know, a limited bottling. But you can still find them at a couple of places. I think O'Brien's still have a couple of them. They all sold out in the airport, but definitely, if you can get your hands on one, you can really see what's going on. Yeah, aside from being just, you know, a nice, easy drinking whiskey, and aside from being a bartender's whiskey, like the curators really shows what the Ronco brand is all about, and you know what's going to happen in the future with really kind of releasing a few very interesting things.
So that was a lot of information, but nothing tangible. But you know, I think we are excited. That is fantastic. And speaking of the curator series, I missed out on a bottle purely because I didn't know anything about it. I saw the curator series and I assumed it was simply another batch. Now that's
Yeah.
I think that's down to me not properly researching it. Um, so we do want to see more there. And it's interesting that Rowan Co is of course Diageo.
Hmm.
There's a big question I want to ask you. Diageo previously owned another Irish distillery in Northern Ireland, Bushmills.
They did, yeah.
Something something I've always been curious about is, and maybe you could only speculate if you can't, because someone could be watching, by all means say no. Why did Diageo sell off Bushmills with centuries of name to start Rowan Co Distillery? That to me seemed like a not a bad idea, but I don't understand the thought behind it.
I don't think anyone really knows, as far as I know, or as far as like the people that I know, but definitely, you know, the idea for Ronco goes back a lot longer than I think anybody realizes. So even though we just opened the distillery a couple of years back and had the whiskey on the market a couple of years back, the whole planning and the whole idea has gone back quite far. So, you know, probably even at the time that Bushmills was owned, you know, there was definitely always the idea that Ronco was going to become something.
Okay, that's a very diplomatic, very professional answer. Thank you for that. That is very interesting. And of course, the whiskey we drink from Rowan Co at this point in time, is that from the distillery or is that a sourced whiskey?
It's sourced at the moment. So obviously the distillery has only been, the stills themselves have only probably been running about a year. So obviously, to anybody that knows whiskey knows that's obviously not going to be what's in the bottle. It is sourced whiskey, but you can definitely make educated guesses as to where the sources are.
Uh, I'm not going to make any guesses. Those people who feel free to guess amongst themselves, but we do thank you for the answer and for being very polite and not telling me to piss off. It's always nice when someone doesn't tell you to piss off. I probably would have said that to me. Um,
Every now and then.
every now and then someone does just come out and say it. It happens more often than you think. Uh, no, but it is really fascinating with your mixology background, your whiskey background. You're obviously a huge lover of it, and
Yep.
yourself being someone who loves making cocktails, being on the Best of Ireland show, now working with Rowan Co. It is fantastic to hear. It does support what you said earlier, where they're looking towards bartenders to make a kind of bartender's whiskey.
Hmm.
But there's one other aspect to your life that is weirdly relevant in Irish whiskey, and that is that you're a reserve guarder. Is that it? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's what it is. So the Garda Reserve program is, I think over in the UK, it's something like the Special Constables or something like that. Um, it's a purely voluntary kind of group, and you know you're allocated to your station. You have your uniform. You go out on the beat as usual, as you would with the rest of your unit. Um, but it's purely voluntary. Um, so I think I kind of got the idea that I wanted to do it while I was in college, because I was kind of hemming and hawing between applying full time for the Gardaí and finishing my degree. I didn't want to apply full time and just drop the degree, so I decided to apply for the reserves when I read up about it and when I saw that they were hiring. So I went in through that way and just I love it. So it's a fantastic way to kind of, give back to the community. It's a fantastic way to help people, which is what I enjoy doing. That's why I enjoy it. And definitely it's a great way of seeing the city as well.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, the real reason I asked about that is there seems to be a large number of emergency service members through Ireland, through the UK, through the EU, through the entire world who are a big part of the whiskey community.
Yeah.
What's what's the deal there? Is this a club that you guys don't tell anyone about? Is this just something where one guy loved it and it just kind of spread from there? Or how did those two come together in any way?
As far as I know, I can't see any correlation, but like there's just a lot from the emergency services who love whiskey. Like I know a few offhand. I obviously won't name names, but there's a few that I know, and like you'd almost think that they worked in the whiskey industry, like with the people that they know and with the pull that they have, and with just the fascination and love that they have for the product. But their full-time job is in the emergency services. I mean, like even Dublin Fire Brigade, they have their own whiskey society, their own whiskey club, and they do tastings, and it's just fantastic to see. And definitely it's a fantastic thing for them to be able to do as well. It's not an easy job by any means. Any of the services, whether it be doctors, paramedics, whether it be firefighters, whether it be Gardaí, to be able to have that sense of community that you can still all join together afterwards, out of work, and have something like whiskey that you can connect over and enjoy and chat about is absolutely fantastic.
No, that is amazing. And we do love the emergency services. A big thanks to yourselves, and especially to medical staff at this time, because we love what you do, and thank you for everything you've done for us. So I do take my hat off to you. I know you're a reserve guard, but obviously you keep our streets safe, and that is something that's to be acknowledged and something that's to be awarded. It's the wrong word, but you understand what I mean.
Of course.
So that's the first section of the broadcast where we're serious and professional, and we get all that stuff out of the way. We can head on to the next session, which is kind of the fun bit, where we can enjoy ourselves and have a little bit more to drink and pour ourselves a couple of double drams and everything. And going into that, I mean, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts, like, on the big world of whiskey at this point in time? Because we've seen more distilleries starting in the last decade than we saw in the previous few decades worldwide, with the exception of Ireland, because we'll jump onto that later. Around the world, who are you excited for in whiskey?
I think I'm excited to see what happens in Japan. How they're going to bounce back, and how, if there's going to be more distilleries opening up, or more brands coming onto the market. You have your Nika, you have your Suntory, like you have your big names. But aside from that, as far as I've seen, because I haven't been able to really delve into it yet, that's all that seems to be kind of dripping across to here. So I would like to see what they do, and especially, they had that era of kind of running out of stock almost. That to be able to build back up and be able to produce more, and see what they do, because like the Japanese stuff, a lot of it is absolutely fantastic. It's on par with Irish, it's on par with Scottish. Like it's definitely not to be looked down on. I don't think anybody does, but when you think whiskey, a lot of people will just say Ireland, Scotland. They'll kind of say America, but I think there's a lot going on. Recently I've been kind of had the idea to really delve into Indian whiskey. It's the idea of, like, we have John Paul and Amrit and everything. I really want to start trying those and seeing what they're like. I know Mulligan's are doing an Indian tasting coming up soon, I think. So it'll just be an interesting thing, because again, like it's the biggest, I think it's the biggest whiskey market in the world, but it's self-contained. Like they really just buy their own whiskey, and like they have all these hundreds of brands that just would never really, again, drip across here or into Europe or into America or anywhere like that.
Yeah, you're completely right. I know about the Indian whiskey tasting that El Mulligan is doing, because Michael actually contacted me to get Shilton's details. Shilton from, I should point this out by the way, from Paul John, not John Paul.
That'd be
John
the
Paul
Pope.
was a pope. Um, I weird tangent. I used to work for a independent bottler in Scotland, and they always name their bottles fun things. And I said to them one day, the next time you bottle a Paul John, can you just call it not the Pope? Because it's John Paul. It's Paul John. It's not John Paul. It's not the Pope. I believe I got laughed out of the office at that suggestion. They said that it was either laughed out. They said, "Don't be fucking stupid." It was one of the two. I like to think they laughed out. No, but you're right there. Like the Indian whiskey market is fascinating, and I know, like Paul John, as recently, I think the most recent release is the Nirvana, which I know nothing about except that it tastes bloody good. But if anyone's watching this, you could always go to Paul John, and you could always check that out. And you could always go to Al Mulligan's and sign up for the tasting, which would be fantastic. Japanese whiskey, on the other hand, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. And I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash about this, but I don't think Japanese whiskey is bad. I just think it's overrated. That's really what it is to me. Now, I realize they have some fantastic whiskeys, but if you've got to justify a whiskey by the price, I can't afford to spend a mortgage on a bottle of whiskey, which may or may not be the best whiskey in the world, but I feel like Japanese whiskey isn't for me because I just can't afford it, and the ones I can afford, I'm not a fan of. I think there are better whiskeys for the same price.
I think definitely that price has to come into everywhere. Even in Ireland, there's a lot of stuff that you see the price and you're kind of wondering why it's at what it is. But from other countries, I can understand the fact that there's such high taxes on alcohol here in Ireland. So when it comes into the country, it's already going to be a lot more expensive than if you bought it in mainland Europe, and then obviously a lot more expensive than if you bought it at source in Japan. So if you could get it for the retail price over in Japan, I'm sure there's some fantastic stuff you'd be able to try for a slightly more moderate price.
No, that's true. I do know my sister's fiance is he works in a good paying job, and they took a trip to Japan last year, and he sent me a message over there and said, "I'm looking through these whiskey flights, which is a good one to go for. They've got the prices in." He had done the conversion for me, so he said, "This is the price in yen. This is the Australian." I said, "Well, all of those sound amazing." And he said, "Yeah, well, you're not getting any." And I was like, "Well, okay, thanks, mate. Thanks very much for that." But also, I mean, as you pointed out earlier, you've got yourself a bottle of Yamazaki 18 over there.
Yep.
Which is, I'm sure there's a few mouths that are watering seeing you have that. And I see you've drunk very little of it as well. There is, how long you had that bottle?
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about, that price. Like, my dad picked that up in Japan a few years back and, literally just picked it up. There was no thought of, whatever price it was, because it was just a regular priced whiskey. But now, if you're to buy that here, you're looking at the better part of, well, maybe 800-900 euro at the lower end. But I mean, over there, it's just, at the time anyway, it was just whiskey. And I think at the time as well, it was mainly exported too. So I think the kind of story goes is that the Japanese themselves realized that they were making this fantastic product and decided to hop onto it and decided to buy it themselves. And that's where the export market then crumbled, and that's why it's just skyrocketed in price over here. Because I remember seeing a bottle of this last year in a little shop, I want to say just outside of Oban in Scotland. And I think it was probably about £700, and it was the only one there on the shelf. So they're definitely rare as hen's teeth when it comes to those kind of bottles over here in Ireland.
Well, because I remember that before, or just before the craze started and when the craze was starting, I was still living in Australia. And for those who don't know, Australia and Japan have very good whiskey relations for some reason. So we used to get a ton of Japanese whiskey. And just your standard Japanese, the Yamazaki 12-year-old, I remember we would sell that for 60 Australian, so we're talking 40, 45 euro, maybe 40
Yeah.
pounds there. But you couldn't sell it for life or money. We were sitting, we had, the shop I worked in was tiny, but we had cases and cases and cases of this stuff because we had such a good deal with the distributor. And then one day someone came in and he bought 6 bottles off our shelf. And I thought, oh, that's kind of weird. I looked it up and, Japan had won a recent whiskey award and Yamazaki had been touted as the whiskey to invest to at that point in time. And I said, okay, and I sent an email to my boss and I said, maybe we should, hold some of this back, or if you want to make money, you should put the price up purely because I think that people are going to flip it. And he didn't do anything. And the next day, I had the next day off, but apparently the guy came back after we had any more, and he bought the remaining 4 cases that we had. And
Jesus.
he got the discount we were doing at the time, which was buy 6 bottles of anything, get 10% off. So that's 24 bottles at 54 Australian each. So call it, less than £1,000 for 24 bottles of Yamazaki 12. And you think nowadays how much that could go for, and part of me says I should have done that myself, but another part of me goes, I definitely would have drunk it.
Yeah. Well, that's it, and that's obviously, again, that's why it is open, and that's why I am drinking, is because, if I have the opportunity to get my hands on something that, is difficult to find, obviously I'm going to drink it and find out why there's such a craze about it. And it's beautiful whiskey. It's excellent for an 18-year-old, but no, absolutely not worth the price. Not even nearly worth the price. Thankfully, we didn't pay that price for it, but God, no, like I wouldn't pick up another one for the price that it's at now.
I mean, that's a great question itself. Like, how good would a whiskey have to be to justify close to £1,000 a bottle, close or over?
See, I suppose there's two sides to it. There's how good the liquid is, and then I suppose there's the rarity and the prestige behind it. I mean, like I got a chance through Mulligan's to try the Teeling 28, and that's 500 quid a bottle, and I would absolutely lay down 500 quid and buy that bottle day in, day out. It is just incredible liquid. That's at the price that it is, but obviously that's going to be flipped for, it could be double that. It could be easily over 1,000 that you'll see those in the secondary market popping up, and I have to say that maybe it's probably not worth that. I'd pay the 500, maybe stretch to 600, but like any more than that, and it's just, it really is getting to the hands of people who, I suppose, just want to display it as being this, piece of pride that they have this bottle, but they probably won't even open it, probably won't even drink it, kind of thing.
Now, I believe that won last year's World Whiskey Awards as best single malt. Is that what it was? Was the Sauterne finish? Is that the one? Or
No,
have I just?
that was. It could have been, there was the Renaissance as well, which was the 18-year-old, which would have come out last year. I think that the 28 only launched this year.
Okay.
Which would have been literally just or during lockdown. Actually, it launched.
Oh, okay. Well, fantastic. I do remember tasting the Teeling that won world's best single malt. I can never remember which one it is. Which it was fantastic. I would say it's probably in the top 10 whiskies I've had all time. I saw the price of it as well and thought, not that good.
Yeah.
It was an extraordinary whiskey, but I am notoriously cheap, so that's just a thing.
Yeah, but that's definitely a huge thing is the price and valuing things at what they should be worth. I mean, one of my favorite whiskeys, which I have beside me here, like the Kilbeggan Pot Still, is phenomenal whiskey. And you know, if you can get it for like 40 quid, again, the Method Man single grain, I think I got that on sale in Tesco for 40, and that's just a fantastic whiskey. But there is a lot that you know start to command higher and higher prices. You know, either based on name or prestige or something. But you know, the liquid might not necessarily actually catch up to that price.
No, that's completely true. I mean, I know we spoke earlier, and I said I always make sure that I include a Baines single grain on any whiskey order I do. I pick up a Baines because Roman Co is fantastic. I tried Roman Co and it's amazing, but I'm sorry to say Baines is something else. Now I'm not just saying that because I know Andy watches this show and it has previously appeared, but it really is amazing. But if you want to send me stuff, Andy, please do. Uh, but with a collection like yours, where you've got, I think you said around 100 bottles,
Around 200, I think, at this point. But
around
that's,
200
as I
bottles.
said, slowed down.
No, it does have to slow down at some point. But with a collection like that, what do you look for when you're buying a new bottle of whiskey?
I suppose the reason the collection started to get a bit, you know, bigger was because I wasn't looking for anything. I was just, you know, I'd see something that I hadn't seen before and I'd want to grab it and try it. And, you know, as I said, a lot of the collection that I built up was from before I was in the industry. So I didn't really know anybody to kind of get into tastings. I didn't really go to any of the trade shows or anything like Whiskey Live. So my way of trying a whiskey was to buy the whole bottle, which is definitely not an economical way of doing it. Um, but I mean that's why like there's another unit just out of sight over this side, which is just crammed full of stuff. Um, yeah, like I kind of just see stuff that I think might be interesting. Like at the West Cork Galcasca, which I picked up for 20 quid. I think it was about 20 in Super Value, and it's a ridiculously good whiskey. Like it's a single malt finished in, I think it's double charred oak or something like that. I can't remember what the reason behind it is, but like that for 20 euro, that's an unbelievable whiskey. But it was just picking up little bits and pieces here and there, and you know, if I saw something I thought, you know, I can set aside that amount of money to grab it, that's what I did, and that's how I ended up with this slightly ridiculous collection.
Oh, fantastic. Um, I think we'd all love to have a collection that big. I, I know I mentioned to you earlier. I think I've been in the industry for about a decade, and I think to date I've gotten 5 free samples. That's it. I am still that guy who buys an entire bottle of whiskey anytime he wants to try something, anytime he has to review it. I'm not bitter. I'm just upset. And of course, we mentioned earlier who you're looking forward to in the world of whiskey, and we spoke about the rest of the world. But I
Mm-hmm.
do want to focus on Ireland because, of course, Ireland is one of the biggest, one of the fastest growing whiskey markets in the world. So, who outside of Rowan Co, who are you really excited for?
I think one that's really stuck out to me recently is Tipperary. What they're producing is incredible. Like my first interaction with Tipperary would have been the Whiskey Live Rioja cask, which still blows me away. Every time I take the cork off and pour a glass of that, it's just ridiculously good. I know Stuart from Mulligan's. I think he bought about 6 bottles at the time, and he was still annoyed that he couldn't buy more. It's that good, and I know a lot that they're bringing out. It's just you know fantastic quality. They really really you know again bringing it back to the dissertation and aging and how much I love casks and barrels, which is really weird, but like the stuff that they're sourcing, the barrels that they're using, they're really, really taking their time to you know pick what's going to be the best of the best that they can get, and as a result, you're getting some phenomenal whiskies from these really old casks. They're getting a lot of the flavor profile from those casks, and you know a lot of the stuff they're putting out as well is at cask strength or close to cask strength, and I really love that. Anything, above the kind of like 43, you start getting more and more of a flavor profile. I know you said earlier you love cask strength whiskey, and I agree. If I can get my hands on something that's, a high ABV, I absolutely love it.
No, I agree with you completely there. And funnily enough, recently, I think it would have been 2 months ago, I I bought a Tipperary Real cask. I took a photo of it because I bought it from who are the guys in Stony Batter? What's their name again?
Is it the drink store?
Yeah, the drink store. I bought it from the drink store, which, by the way, anyone watching, the drink store is a fantastic shop in Stony Batter. You should definitely buy from there. Bought from them, and I took a photo and I put it on Twitter. And I don't think 5 minutes had gone by before Stuart sent me a message saying, "Where did you buy it? I need to know where there's more of this whiskey." I had to say to him, "It was the last bottle." And then I ordered some from online, and I sent him a message about that as well. And he was again very much saying, "You need to tell me where this is." But I think I've gone through half a dozen of those Rare Podcast bottlings. They are stunning. They're absolutely amazing. Tipperary does fantastic stuff.
Um, no, it really is. And I think who else am I kind of looking at recently? I'm really enjoying the stuff from Cologne, all the kind of, definitely experimental small batches using woods that I can't pronounce. I think, what was it?
There's an X after a T. I don't know how you pronounce that. Is it Sac?
Yeah, I think it's actually just Takalina, but I'm probably very wrong on that. That was the Takalina Acacia. Again, phenomenal. And, bottle at 55.8, so it's nice and high in the ABV. They just brought out the peated recently. Um, what else they have? They had a tequila cask as well, which, is definitely a strange one to be using. But I mean, the fact that people are pushing the boat out to actually say, we're going to give it a go and see what happens, I really admire. And I think that that's what's, the major selling point of Irish whiskey at the moment. And I suppose talking about peat, like I love the idea of, a future of Irish whiskey with a lot more peat in it. I love what they're doing. I know Dottie was on earlier, and he knows how much I love the Bill Phil. I said it was like a, what did I say? I think I said it was like a country fireplace on a tropical island. It's just one of my top whiskeys I've come across this year. I know it didn't come out this year, but I only tried it for the first time this year, and it's just a beautiful whiskey. But like that, I love peat. I started out with Irish. I then was thrown into the deep end when I went over to Islay. I think all I could taste was like it was like a furnace in my mouth for the next few weeks afterwards. After I'd come home, it was just peat. That's all I could smell. It was just stuck in my nose. But after I kind of had tailed off that, had a few Irish whiskies, and came back around to it, it was just I love peated whiskey now, and I love strong peated whiskey. And definitely, I love the idea of a more Irish distilleries heading down the peated route, like that. Teeling 28 that I told you about. That's actually 5 ppm, so it's very, very, very little peat, but it's enough to just kind of carry it across and to let you know that it's there, and it works perfectly.
No, I mean, I love peat. That W.D. O'Connell, the Bill Phil, um, I I said of that it tastes like it picks up Ardbeg and shakes it down for its lunch money. Um, when I wrote that review, but I stand by what I said. That is a fantastic whiskey. To see more whiskey coming out of Ireland like that, I would really love. Peated whiskey is a huge love of mine. I realize
Yeah.
it's a very niche category, but when it's done well, it's done bloody well. And they really did it. Connemara is great, but it doesn't hit the spot like a big beastie boy like that.
Well, that's it. I suppose
Anyway,
Connemara was there to allow everybody to grow, to allow everybody to kind of say, well, there's already peated Irish in the market. Let's just go out and do our version of that. And like that, Bill Phil is just, a phenomenal whiskey.
oh, we love it. But having said all that, this is actually meant to be about you and about Rowan Co. So we also love Rowan Co. We actually do. Rowan Co. is a fantastic whiskey. You can purchase it from I don't know, Jack, where could you purchase a bottle of Ronco from?
You can actually find it, the standard 106 bottling. You can find it almost anywhere. Definitely O'Brien's if you're going in there. Malloy's will have it. Most of the shops will have it. Tesco, Super Value, so it's readily available. It's usually always at a fairly solid price. It should be somewhere hovering around the 40 mark. And for that, definitely pick it up. It's a great price to pick it up, and you won't be disappointed.
I apologize for that noise there. No, definitely all the places you've spoken of, and if you're further abroad, I know a lot of the viewers of this channel tend to be UK based or European based. We
Mhm.
purchase it through Whiskey Exchange or Master.
I don't know about that one actually. I can find out and I'll post it in the comments after this. I know we do have a UK brand ambassador, so it's definitely in the UK at the moment, and it's over in the US, and I think a few bottles have made their way out to Australia as well. So it's making its way out there. Again, on that side of it, it's only really going to be the original bottling. So the cast strength that I was talking about is only in Ireland at the moment. I think it was only an Irish release, and I think it's going to stay as an only Irish release. And of course, as I said, the curators is all but gone now, unless you can find it in a few places like the distillery or a few of the O'Brien stores. So it's just the standard one at the moment.
Well, I can tell you that no one in Australia watches the show. It's on too late. They're 9 hours ahead. My own mother doesn't
Yeah.
watch this show. Mum, if you're watching, I'm sorry. Um, but I guess to wrap up, before we get to the final fun part of the night, I want to take care of a few questions with you.
hmm
Firstly, in what way would you like to see the whiskey community supporting the industry at this time?
I think, well, if I can say as well, from background from the food side of it, I think everybody really needs to support local, support the small cafes, the small restaurants, the small bars and whiskey bars because they're really going to be struggling. It's heartbreaking to see that so many have already closed down. Every time I'm passing through on the bus into town or the bus around the place and just seeing, all these pubs that, as far as I can see have been there for as long as I remember and they're all boarded up, the names are stripped off the top. So it's definitely heartbreaking to see. So I think if you can get out and, obviously social distance, obviously be wary and wear your mask and everything when you're going. But I think just support local, even if it's just to buy one drink or if it's just to buy a sandwich, or just to buy like one meal on a night out, definitely try and support. And of course, the other thing as well is if you do make a booking, obviously don't just run away from that booking and not show up. If you need to cancel, make sure to ring and cancel because I know a place that I know, I think they're on Camden Street. They said they had a 10-person table just not show up one night, and that's them screwed for the night basically because they don't have time to be able to fill that in. There's everything has to be booked now, so they can't just have people walking in. So it makes a huge impact, and I'd hate to see from any more places having to shut down because of this.
No, you're completely right there. To everyone who's watching, I know everyone will know this, but please spread it to your friends. If you make a booking at a restaurant or a bar during this time, keep the booking or give them adequate notice that they can fill that booking. It's important we keep the local industries alive and we support everyone we can. Uh, Following that, as for you yourself, you mentioned earlier you're quite active on Instagram. What is your Instagram handle? Where can we follow you?
It is at Jack P Higgins, so the name just there, but a P in the middle. So you'll see mostly whiskey. Like it's 90% going to be whiskey, but there's some other posts every now and then. I like to take nice pictures of things, but yeah, definitely. And if there's anything you want to know, you can fire me a message and I'll reply.
I'm pretty sure that's the one you meant. I really hope it
That's it.
is. At Jack P. Higgins, at Jack Higgins. It's why before we started the show, I asked Jack if I had spelled his name right because I didn't know there was a P there. Uh, but thank you so much for all that. So, on to the final section of the show. For those who
Yes.
normally watch, you'll know that we do a question quiz round and an anagram round. And as Jack has such a massive background and is a love of mixology, our quiz questions today will be regarding cocktails.
Oh god.
It'll be fine, you'll do brilliant. Uh, to anyone who is watching, if you know the answer, feel free to post it in the comments and show us what you know. You don't win anything aside from being right. That's all we do. So, the first quiz question. Which traditionally bourbon-based cocktail is associated primarily with the American South?
Would it be an old fashioned?
It's not an old-fashioned. I was going to say you can ask for a hint. An old-fashioned is generally where you think. That's probably the next one down. You can ask for a hint.
I'll go for a hint then.
Think fresh. Think fresh in your mouth. Something that makes your mouth fresh.
Mint julep.
Mint julep
Is
is
that it?
the correct answer. The mint julep is arguably has the most connection to the South when regarding bourbon-based cocktails. It is also bloody tasty. The first time I made a mint julep, I was 16 years old. Yeah, it wasn't very good when I made it. I can make them better now. Anyway, and in which famous 1920s book is this line spoken? Open the whiskey, Tom, and I'll make you a mint julep.
Oh, this is not going very well, is it? I have no idea.
No, okay, no, you definitely know the book. You probably know the movie, which the
I
most
was gonna
recent.
say, is it The Great Gatsby?
It is The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. Gatsby says, I think it's Gatsby says, open the whiskey, Tom, and I'll make you a mint julep. Mint juleps focus heavily throughout that book. I only know this because we studied it when I was 16 in high school, and the only thing I learned from it was the mint julep recipe, which is why I made myself mint julep. Okay, so question number 3. Which whiskey-based cocktail consists of the following? Whiskey, blood orange or orange juice, cherry heering, and vermouth. This cocktail is named after the Rudolph Valentino's 1922 bullfighter movie. I don't know if that helps you at all.
No, not really.
I don't know. Think about two things that are in a bullfighter's arena. Think about the surface of a bullfighter's arena.
Dirt, clay. I think I'm probably overthinking it now at this point as well.
Say again.
I think I'm overthinking it now at this point.
No, don't play. It's I'm gonna tell you. The surface is generally sand, so it's a something in sand.
I actually don't know.
Ah, it's blood and sand.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one,
Now,
but I will definitely go and try
oh,
and make that now.
because I'm a pretentious bastard, I quite like a blood and sand. But seriously, just some blended whiskey, some blood orange or grapefruit juice, a little bit of cherry heering or cherry brandy, and some Rosso vermouth. Absolutely stunning. Equal measures, shaken just a little bit. You will have an awful hangover. I can promise you
It'd
that.
probably be worth it though.
Oh no, they really are. They really are. All right. Cocktail question number 4. Now, I will point out to you, by the way, these are arguably the most difficult questions I've written for any of the shows. So I am sorry about that. I know you'll do brilliant in the next round.
Uh, we'll see. We'll see.
So this question is about gin cocktails. What is the
Okay.
difference between a Tom Collins and a John Collins?
Again, I didn't even know there was a John Collins. As I said, I'm not a mixologist. I don't think I deserve to have the title. Clearly, judging by these last couple of questions, I did make a Tom Collins over the lockdown, but I have no idea what a John
What
Collins would be.
was
There was gin. There was definitely lemon juice in it as well. Again, like I said, it's like an exam. I kind of forget after I've done it. I have it here somewhere.
you can't go on the phone. That's a bit too much.
Oh, I can't remember. Um, no, you're gonna have to give it to me again.
So a Tom Collins is made with Old Tom style gin, and a John Collins is made with Genever or Hanover.
Aha.
Cheers.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'm sure you'll know this one. I'm positive you'll know this one.
No pressure.
Which which former British Prime Minister was quoted saying, "I like to observe the vermouth from across the room while I drink my martini."
I feel like it was something that Churchill might have said.
Yeah, Churchill said that. Um, as a as a weird question, and this is something I ask a lot of people. How much
Hmm.
vermouth would you in a martini?
A small amount. I know some people like it in it, some people don't. It's one of those kind of divisive things where it's shaken, not stirred, vermouth, no vermouth. It's actually in Kingsman as well. I think he says it. He says that kind of like a twist on that. I think he says he wants it to glance at a bottle of vermouth across the bar.
That's definitely going to be a Churchill reference there, and I did. I'm now remembering. I now remember that line from Kingsman, and I didn't realize I was in that. That's fantastic. I really enjoyed that. All right, so we are on to the second portion of the round, which is the anagram portion. Now, these anagrams are all involving Irish whiskies or Irish whiskey brands.
Okay.
How are you feeling?
I think definitely my girlfriend is the strong point on the anagrams. She just does it for fun. I can never get my head around them. But yeah. So I'll type it out as you say it and see if I can visualize what it is.
Don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll do great. Now, if you were to have a whiskey in the Pripyat ER, which Irish whiskey would you be drinking? That's Pripyat ER.
Tipperary?
Tipperary is completely correct.
It
Tipperary
was
it is.
the double
I'm,
P that
I'm
saved
not,
me on that one.
oh no, no, you had that one. You had that one from the get go, mate. You've got this. Uh, I love Tipperary as a whiskey, but also you can make so many anagrams from that name. Now, The next anagram is baking gel. You've also mentioned this whiskey during this episode. Baking gel.
Kilbeggan?
Kilbeggan it is. Kilbeggan is an anagram of baking gel. I quite like Kilbeggan. That anagram is nothing against them. I should also point out that this next anagram, I really enjoy this whiskey. But I really enjoy this whiskey. They just happen to be an anagram of this. It is.
Oh God.
Scarab urine. Where are we? There we are.
Scarab urine.
Sorry about that.
Definitely a little bit stuck on this one. I think we might have just lost Marcus there.
I apologize for that. My mic muted itself. Yes. The anagram is scarab urine. Now, I can give you a clue. I can give you 2 clues to this one.
Okay.
Think Wicklow. Think 1803. This is a Wicklow-based company, I believe, and it's a blend. It's not a distillery. I believe it's also in Gaelic.
Wicklow. My mind's just blanking now.
Oh, you've got my board shorts there. Very professional show this. All right.
Oh, I think you might have to give it to me on this one.
So this one is more difficult than most. This is Bar and Uski.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah. No, that was a tough one. So I do apologize for that one.
It was all going so well with the first 2, and then just kind of dropped off a cliff there.
That was one of the more. That was probably the most difficult anagram I've ever had, actually. It being in Gaelic doesn't help at all. Now, second last anagram. A rabid get.
See, straight off the bat, I just wanted to say dead rabbit. Because it's rabid.
Yeah.
Oh, it is dead rabbit. Yeah, okay.
To those to those from Dead Rabbit, I don't know if you're on Rabbit Debt, if you're in Rabbit Debt. If you are, this wasn't meant to be an attack. This is literally just an anagram. Dead Rabbit happens to be an anagram of Rabbit Debt. Anyway, your final anagram of myself today is Ace Donor.
Hello.
Now, I'll point out I'm kind of cheating because this
Okay.
brand typically. Yeah, you think you got it?
I actually missed what you said. I didn't hear what a.
I'm kind of cheating because this brand typically uses a symbol instead of a word. Simon, for your input, it is not acorn dough.
A symbol. Something uses a
Point out,
symbol.
Jack, you should be extremely familiar with this brand.
Well, that doesn't make it any better. I'm actually just kind of frantically looking around to see what's on my shelves to see if anything will. It's not Rowan Co, is it? Oh, you meant a symbol in the right. Okay, got it.
This is Rowan Co. Yeah. Instead of using the and, I put an and.
Okay, okay. I thought you meant a symbol as like the symbol instead of a name, but I got there in the end.
No, no, I apologize. Rowan Co, when spelled out phonetically, is an anagram of ace donor.
There we go.
And we have one person who got that, by the way. Mothma got that. I don't know who Mothma is, but Mothma, very good job.
That's my mom.
That's your mum. All
It
right.
is, yeah. She got that before I did. And my dad
I
just texted
think.
me as well to say it.
Oh, it's all a good bit of fun. You've still gotten no matter how bad you think you did, you're still in just about you're still above average overall. And
Okay.
regarding getting the name of your own brand, you're still I'm going to say B plus considering everyone else. So don't worry, you did great, man. You did great. But that is all the time we have today. Jack, it's been fucking fantastic chatting with you, mate. It's been great to hear about your journey, which is incredible in itself, and does take me to my final question for you, which I
Okay.
can kind of think when we first started talking, which is, given your dissertation on barrel aging,
Mm-hmm.
given how much you're involved in whiskey, how much you love it, and we spoke earlier, you're looking to do the IBD as well. Do you have your own plans to maybe one day start Jack Higgins Distillery? Could we see that in like 10 years' time? Could we see that? Could that be a thing?
I definitely would not call it Jack Higgins Distillery, but I would like to produce something on my own. Um, it would take a huge amount of thought and funding, but yeah, no, I mean it would be incredible just to be able to see a bottle on the shelf and say, yeah, that's my whiskey that whether it be sourced or produced, it would be fantastic to see.
No, we would all love to see that. Strong, but no, it's been fantastic to chat to Jack today. If you're interested in following Jack, you can find him on Instagram and Twitter at Jack Higgins. Rowan Co. is available to purchase from the likes of El Mulligan, Celtic Whisky Shop, O'Brien's, the Drink Store. I believe it's Master Malt has it. I believe also Whiskey Exchange likely has it. It's a fantastic whiskey. You should definitely try it. You should definitely tell us your thoughts on it. Tell Jack your thoughts on it. But make sure you give him a follow and make sure you send him a message. And is there anything you want to add to?
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's been fantastic to be able to chat to you and just chat about whiskey in general. It's what I do best. You know, it's probably not a good thing when it's people that aren't in the industry, when I'm just shouting on about whiskey quite a lot and they're kind of sitting there just trying to have their drink in peace. But no, I love talking about whiskey. So thank you so much for giving me a platform to annoy even more people with my whiskey ramblings.
I promise you, if this channel ever gets sponsored by anyone, I'll say them. I want to get Jack back on so we can continue rambling about it.
I happily would. I happily would.
It'd be great to have you on, dude. But it's been brilliant to have you. Thank you so much again for coming on. I've been Sam Whiskey Bloke. This has been Jack Higgins. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and have a great night.
Thanks, Millie.
No worries. Slash everyone.